We are going to be doing the Unit 2 summative remediation and reflection. I'm going to go through this quickly, but start off first with putting my name, date, and class period. I'm going to represent class period number 3 today. So let's jump right in with number 1. It says, Clapback Clark bought 7 pounds of pretzels at a local wholesaler for $16.80. Her friend Charles bought 5 pounds of pretzels at the supermarket for $12.75. Who got the better deal? So we know how much 7 pounds cost, for example. I need to know how much 1 pound cost, right? So that's going to, I'm setting up a unit rate for that. And remember to label the bottom, so the denominator, so that you know what measurements, what units are going down there in the denominator. So I'm comparing that 1 pound to the 7 pounds that were bought for $16.80. And I'm going to check the price. I'm using the variable of P for that. I'm going from 7 pounds down to 1 by dividing by 7. So that means up here I need to also divide by 7. So $16.80 divided by 7 gives me 2.4, which means that the price is equal to $2.40 per pound. All right, that's what Clark paid. So now let's check Charles. I'm going to set up my proportion lines again. I'm comparing 1 pound to the 5 pounds that he bought. And the 5 pounds cost $12.75. So now I'm going to use C this time for the cost for Charles. And I know I'm going from 5 down to 1 pound by dividing by 5. So that means up here I need to also divide by 5. So let's pop that into the calculator, $12.75 divided by 5, and I get 255.55. So that means that for Charles, the price was $2.55 per pound. So the question asked, though, who got the better deal? Well, Clark paid less. So I could go ahead and write that Clark did. My answer is Clark. All right, number 2, Mrs. Johnston's car travels 304 miles on 16 gallons of gas. How far can the car go on 5 gallons? So I know how far the car can go on 16 gallons. I cannot use any information on how far can the car go on 5 because that's what we're figuring out after. So let's first use this information to find the unit rate. I know that I am looking for 1 gallon of gas for a certain amount of miles. And I'm comparing that to the 16 gallons that can be, that 304 miles can go on. So I'm going to use M for miles. And I'm going to point my arrows. So let's look. I'm going from 16 down to 1 gallon by dividing by 16. So I'm going to also divide by 16 over here on this part of the ratio. Pop it to my calculator, 304 divided by 16. And I get 19. So that means that M equals 19 miles per gallon. So that means for 1 gallon I go 19. And then so if I want 5, that'd be 19 plus 19 plus 19 plus 19 plus 19. Or I could simply say 19 times 5. And when I pop that into my calculator, I get 95. So my final answer, how far can a car go on 5 gallons? 95 miles. Number 3, if 4 gallons of milk cost $16.76, how much would 7 gallons of milk cost? All right, so this is just like the previous one. I am going to set up a unit rate. I already know how much 4 gallons cost. I want to know how much does 1 gallon cost. And 4 gallons cost $16.76. And I'm going to use C for the cost. And remember, which variable you use is not as much as important as you being able to solve it correctly. So I'm going for 4 down to 1 gallon by dividing by 4. So that means up here I'm also dividing by 4. So So I'm going to pop it to the calculator, 16.76 divided by 4, and I get 4.19. So this means that the cost is equal to $4.19 per gallon. Well, now that I know how much 1 gallon costs, I can multiply by 7 to know the price of 7 gallons. 4.19 times 7 is equal to $29.33. So that's my final answer. So that was on unit rate. Let's go to the next type of proportion, percent. A 15% tip on Mrs. Pace's lunch bill is $2.55. How much is the bill? All right, so I know automatically I'm setting up a percent proportion. I'm putting 100 in the denominator there. And it tells me, I see the percent symbol, 15%. So 15 is what I'm putting over my 100 to represent that percent. It says the tip on it only is $2.55. So I don't know the total bill. So I'm going to use B for bill. And the part of that bill that was $2.55. I do not know how much the total bill costs. I just know that a little part of it is $2.55. So this is where you're going to definitely need some calculator work. So first I point my arrow to what I do not yet know. Point my other arrow in the same direction. And remember, I showed you guys the calculator trick of so I can't make an easy jump here between 15 and 2.55. I know I'm going to use a calculator. It's a decimal. So I look at what is at the end of the arrow pointed to, $2.55. So that's what I'm putting into my calculator. And I'm going to hit divide, and I'm dividing it by what's on the tail end. So I'm dividing that by 15. And I get 0.17. All right. So what that means, and you could test this in your calculator, all right? You could test this in your calculator, that when I multiply this 15 by 0.17, I get 2.55. Let's check it. 0.17 times 15. Look at that, back at 2.55. So if I multiply up here by 0.17, I have to do the same thing down here. So 100 times 0.17 gives me 17. So that means that her bill is equal to $17. Let's look at number 2. 45 books represents 5% of the total books at the Cannon Library. What is the total number of books? So again, we're talking about a percent proportion, and we do not know the total. So I am going to just put T for total books. Let me curve that so it looks like a T and not a plus. And up here, we know that the part of those books, those 45 books. Now, I'm going to go ahead and draw my arrows. I see that I can make an easy jump from 5 to 45 by multiplying by 9. So down here, I'm also going to multiply by 9. 100 times 9 is 900. So T is equal to 900. So my answer is 900 books at the Cannon Library. All right, number 3. What is 8% of 200? 8% of 200. Again, a percent proportion. So I am setting up my proportion for percent, putting my 100 in the denominator, and I'm going to go ahead, and I see percent here for 8, so I'm putting my number 8 above that 100, and it says what is 8% of 200. Remember, our of goes in the denominator, so 200 is here, and I don't know the part. We're missing the part. I know the whole amount is 200. So I'm going to draw my arrows. I see that I can make an easy jump from 100 to 200 by multiplying by 2. So that means up here I'm also multiplying by 2. And 8 times 2 is 16. So P is equal to 16. So what is 8% of 200? 16 is. All right, now we're looking at measurement conversions. Number one, a large container at a party holds 9 liters of lemonade. About how many gallons of lemonade does the container hold? So the conversion factor they want us to use is that 1 gallon is equal to 3.79 liters. So if I wanted to set up a a measurement conversion, I will be using the unit rate that 1 gallon is equal to 3.79 liters. All right. So I'm comparing gallons down here and liters up here. And in my problem, it tells me 9 liters. Yeah, 9 of those liters. So I do not know. I'm going to put a G for gallon. We do not know the gallons. Okay. So I need to know. I'm going to first point my arrow to what I do not yet know. Point my arrow in the same direction. And remember, we are looking at what the arrow is pointing to, and that's what I'm putting in the calculator first. So that's 9 divided by what's at the tail end of the arrow, 3.79. And it gives me all of those numbers. All right. And here's the cool thing. This means that this is the number that I multiplied by to get to 9. From 3.79 up to 9, I had to multiply by 2.3746701. So that means since I have a 1 here, I'm timesing this 1 times that, and that means I'm going to get this number all over again. And it asks me to round to 1 decimal place. So that means 1 decimal place would be at 3. So I need to look next to it to see if I need to round up, if it's 5 or more. And it is. It's a 7. So that means rounding up to 1 decimal place would be 2.4. So that means G equals 2.4. So 2.4 gallons. Another quick way you could have solved this is if you could have simply, some people know to cross multiply. 3.79 times G is equal to 9 times 1, which is 9. So what is going to be multiplied by G in order to get us to 9? That might be a little harder for some of you, so try my way with the proportion. That for this type of problem is quicker. Number 2, DJ Tay's desk is 3 feet long. About how long is it in meters? So it's telling us to use a conversion factor of 1 foot equals 0.305 meters. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a unit rate where my 1 foot is in my denominator. So I'm comparing feet here in the denominator, and that's compared to 0.305 meters. And we do not know the meters over here, so I'm going to just use M for meters, and we do know that my desk is 3 feet. So how am I going from 1 up to 3? I'm multiplying by 3. How am I going up here? That means I need to also multiply by 3. So I'm going to take my 0.305 times 3, and it gives me 0.915. And notice it doesn't tell us to round to any particular decimal place. So that means the meters of my desk is 0.915 meters. All right, number 3, Hitmaker Haskins mails a package that weighs 140 grams. About how many ounces is the package? And it tells us to use a conversion factor of 1 ounce equals 28.4 grams, round to 1 decimal place. All right, so let's go ahead and set this up. I know that my unit rate will be the 1 ounce, and OZ is the abbreviation that's used for ounces, and that's worth 28.4 grams according to our conversion factor here. And I know that the package costs 140 grams, and we do not know the ounces down here, so I'm going to put W for weight. Okay, so this is another one another one where I am going from 1 times something to get to my weight. And up here, I need to find out what is that multiplication. So I have pointed, the arrow's pointed to 140. So I'm going to put that in, divided by the 28. 140 divided by the 28.4. And notice that gives me 0.0352112, right? So, and it only wants that 1 decimal place. 1 decimal place. Well, here's what's interesting about this, guys. Here's what's interesting. Is that, and hold on, I might have popped something in wrong. Let me pop this in again. All right, so when I am looking at 140, and excuse me, I popped something in wrong, and I divided by that 28.4, it should give me this, 4.9295774, right? So if I am rounding that to 1 decimal place, that means, you see that 9 there? Well, that means that I need to look next door to that 9 and see if I need to round up, and it's a 2, so I do not. If it was 5 or more, I would, but it's only a 2, so my answer is 4.9. And let's check that. Yeah, it's going to, if I had all the numbers, it's going to get me up to that 140. So if I round it to just 1 decimal place, I have the weight is 4.9. And what is that unit? It's not dogs, it's not cats, it's not shrimp, or 0.9 ounces. All right, so that's when it's rounded to 1 decimal place. So I don't have that whole trail of numbers. This next part, assessment and remediation reflection, you must answer in complete sentences. Did you study for the test? Be honest, there's no point in lying. What did you do to study? This is what's like, we really would love to know, what did you do to study and how long did you study? And then thinking about this remediation, and then the test we're talking about is this original Unit 2 test. And then what types of errors did you make on these remediation problems? You have now gotten to see, and you saw I made a little boo-boo here, but I was able to fix it. But you have gotten to see what I did for the work for each of these problems. And you were to compare that to the work that you did. So what kinds of errors did you notice that you made? And that's where this is not a judgment. This is just for you to consider, well, what did I do wrong? What did I forget to do something? Did I not set up something properly, etc.? And then the last question, what will you do to correct your errors in the future? That's important for you to consider and to process through, because you need to know how can you avoid making those same mistakes later. Like for Miss Tay, it's making sure I am popping my numbers and hitting the right buttons in my calculator. But luckily I looked at it and I said, that doesn't seem quite right. Because if I had the 28.4 and I'm going all the way up to a bigger number, that calculator answer should be different. So I am going to watch my errors in the future. So what can you do to correct yours? All right, guys. So I hope this was helpful. Have a great retesting tomorrow.